Welcome to another edition of Deep Purple as we continue our Big 12 briefing, taking a tour around the new schools in the conference. And today we have Chad Brendel, the publisher at the Cincinnati site here at 247 Sports Bearcat Journal. And also with Chad is his dog. And we have a dog-friendly environment around here because my dogs bark all the time when I'm doing media stuff. So I don't care. And if you do, get used to it. Chad, welcome to the Big 12. It's official as of July 1.
Yeah, it's an exciting time here in Cincinnati. It's quite a day yesterday, just the 30th. I don't know when this will run specifically, but they had a big event at one of the breweries in Cincinnati. They went from 12 to midnight, counted down, had a toast at midnight. They released a new beer tied to the NIL collective. So it's called Cincy Light. It's really good. And had a big celebration of that all day, tapped the first kegs of it at noon yesterday. Nice. And they gave the media all 32-ounce growlers for showing up. Started out the day pretty good. But it was the excitement level in Cincinnati is really, really high.
Well, I've got a philosophy about the media that I share with like ADs and coaches. If you want us to show up, you got to feed us. But we're like bears. We'll keep showing up until we turn on you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of how the media works. Well, let's get rolled.
Give us food. This time they gave us beer and food.
That's better. That's more effective. Yeah, I think that should happen at every media event. Just have the beer and the food. So here we go. Chad, tell me what fans around the Big 12 should know about Cincinnati football in 2023.
Well, Tim, I have no idea.
That's what I thought.
It's going to be very interesting. It's you're going into a new era with essentially very few pieces remaining from the awesome legacy that Luke Fickell built over 6 years. You're going to have a revamped offensive line, a new quarterback. The wide receiver room at one point was down to one returning scholarship player from the Fickell era. The defense should still be really good. That should still be Cincinnati's calling card. I think 4 of the last 6 years, they were top 10 in the country in defense, or right around top 10. So that should still be really good. Offensively, it's a lot of unknowns. Scott Satterfield likes to run more of that outside zone, read option type stuff. A little bit different. Luke Fickell was inside zone, was more direct, kind of run right at you, and then try to throw over the top. So offensively, there's a great deal of, we don't really have any idea what this is going to look like. Defensively, they're going to be very aggressive. They're going to blitz, get after the quarterback, continue that identity of, attacking aggressive Cincinnati defense. We'll see how that works in a league that's known for high firepower, high octane offenses.
Yeah, the defenses have cranked it up in the last few years. But yeah, this is a conference with a test every week. Now that Kansas decided to be okay, it's pretty relentless. Okay, well, Cincinnati.
If you're Texas, Kansas was always a test anyway.
I know. It's just and Kansas State beat Oklahoma and Norman years in a row. It's crazy. Of course, I think we all know a lot about Cincinnati basketball because we had Bob Huggins here for a year, and so we got caught up with some of that history when he was around. But what about the Bearcats in 2023 in the hoops realm? What should we know?
They had a very good transfer portal haul. Went out. They lost their 2 best players in David DeJulius and Landers Nolly. One to graduation, and then Nolly got an Exhibit 10 contract after the draft. So they had to retool, and they had to improve the top of the roster. And that's not always easy, although Jerome Tang has done a great job of that. But that's a tight needle to thread in the transfer portal, is find guys to impact the top of your roster. They feel that they've done that. C.J. Frederick, who was at Iowa and then Kentucky, Seamus Lukosius, who was at Butler, one of Butler's best players, Jameel Reynolds from Temple, who's 6'11", 280, 285 pound, like back to the basket big man. And then the guy that I'm pretty convinced is an alien, named Aziz Bandago from Utah Valley, who's 7'1" and one of the best shot blockers in the country. So they went out, they impacted the perimeter, they impacted their depth on the interior. So they should be, I mean, they look the part. You know, they
Good.
have, I think, 9 guys, 6'5" or bigger, 3'7", 6'11", 7 foot plus guys.
Wow.
So they've got a lot of size, a lot of physicality, and it should be really interesting. I think basketball is going to come down to point guard play and 2 new point guards. So that's the big question.
Indeed. What's another sport at Cincinnati that the school takes a lot of pride in that Big 12 fans should know about?
Right now, the most interesting non-revenue sport is probably golf. They had a really good season this year. They were in the top 40. They made the NCAA tournament. Doug Martin, he used to be the #1 ranked amateur in the country before some injuries kind of derailed his professional career, has done a phenomenal job. They've had a couple, they're stacking really good recruiting classes, and they look to be another team in that next year, have another team in that range of, you know, top 30, top 40 golf teams in the country. So that was kind of on the upswing. That's a new one for Cincinnati. They just brought in a new baseball coach that had a lot of success at Central Michigan, that's coming in to take over the baseball program. So, and they hired a new women's basketball coach that had a great deal of success at Memphis. So there's a couple avenues that are starting to point in the right direction as they walk into what's obviously going to be a much more difficult situation.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's turn to some other fun questions. What are the fans' excitement level for this move into the Big 12?
On a scale of 1 to 10, probably 25 or 30. This is kind of the unique thing for Cincinnati here. Cincinnati was in a power conference.
Yep.
And when the Big East fell apart and they didn't land somewhere, they didn't find a life raft back in 2012, you were afraid, there was a very real fear that they were just going to drift. Like, when is this possibility going to change? You had the Big 12 thing in 2016 where everybody thought it was going to happen all the way up until it didn't. Cincinnati was thought to be at the front of the line for that process, and then it never happened. And there was a real fear that as these schools continue to make more and more and more and more money, and you're in a conference that's making $7 to $10 million a year, that you just weren't going to be able to maintain the level of success that Cincinnati wants to attain. And to have this come along and to finally exit the wilderness, if you will, the fan base is just over the moon. The event at Rheingeiss yesterday, it was packed from noon to midnight, and you could really feel the intensity and the excitement that we get to go back to the big leagues. Kind of, it's like they got relegated, but they didn't
do anything to deserve it. Yeah,
right. They didn't lose to get relegated; they just got relegated, and now they're getting called back up. So it's a lot of energy, a lot of excitement.
Well, there's been 2 close calls for Cincinnati with the Big 12 before. When they expanded and added West Virginia and TCU, there was talk about Cincinnati and Louisville coming in back in the early 10s, 2011, 12, whatever that was. And then, of course, you mentioned 16. Both times Texas said, no, we're not going to do anymore. Well, we're done. Yeah. So you can hate Texas as they go out for that. Exactly.
Is this how we do it?
Yeah, that's how you do it. They don't like it. That's why you do it. What are the realistic expectations for Bearcat athletics in this first year of the Big 12?
Football's the great unknown, because I think when you look at the schedule, they avoided all top 4 teams from last year. And when you look at their home and away, who they got and when and where, I don't know that you could have dreamt up a better year 1 schedule because of Cincinnati being in this transition period. So, but the problem is you still have, I think, 6 or 7 coin toss games that, when you look at the power indexes. And so realistically, I could see anywhere from 4-8 to 8-4.
Yeah.
How does the offense work? Is the defense as good as we think it's going to be? There are just so much unknown. How does Scott Satterfield's system adapt to the roster that he has? That part is kind of wild. For basketball, I think realistically, this is a team that should be on the bubble. And if they come together, because there are 7 new pieces joining this roster this year, and it's so insane. You've done this for a little bit longer than me. I started in 2006 with Rivals as well.
Yeah.
7 new guys every year is like the norm. 7, like if you get 6, you're like, oh, only 6 new guys this year.
So weird.
I think this is the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th year in a row Cincinnati's turned over more than half the roster.
Wow.
But I think with the base that Wes Miller has put in place, and then the quality additions that he has added on top of that, I think they should be a tournament team. That'll come down to, here's a name for you. Cincinnati's success this year will largely depend on Edgerrin James Jr., who was a
Nice.
top 50 level point guard from out of Florida. If he can come in and not have that significant freshman learning curve, along with a guy named Dede Thomas, who was one of the top 3 JUCO players in the country, that's the worry. You have 2 guys taking over a point guard that have never bounced the ball in a Division I game. And I've been told they play pretty good basketball in the Big 12.
It's a rumor. It's a rumor.
So if those 2 can play at a high level, I think you have an NCAA tournament team in basketball.
Yep, it's Big 12 basketball is a blast. You got to get to work every night. Okay,
it takes me back to my old favorite Mick Cronin line in the Big East. You're 1 week away from a 3-game losing streak. No matter how good your season is going, Saturday to Saturday, if you got to go Baylor, Kansas State, and then Kansas.
Yeah.
Now our 7-4 conference record is 7-7, and we're scratching and clawing.
It's so true. Now this question's a little different for you because I already know the answer. But what Big 12 school will end up being a rival with Cincinnati because you get back West Virginia?
Yeah, it's West Virginia.
Yeah.
They didn't really like the rivalry was really beginning to take off when everything imploded, because West Virginia was king of the hill in the Big East with Noel Devine and Pat White and Steve Slayton and that electric Rich Rod group. And then Cincinnati with Brian Kelly kind of
amazing
overtook them. And West Virginia fans didn't like that. They didn't like the new kid coming in and taking their shine. So that rivalry was starting to take off, and then it fell apart. So that one is going to be big time. And we already don't like the Hospitality Management Technical Institute in Orlando.
Good point. Yeah, they're
that's why they're so active. That's why UCF's so active on Twitter, especially at night, because all their alumni are working the front desk at hotels around.
Oh my
Orlando
God,
overnight.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. These are all the nuances that are going to be so fun to explore. Okay, Chad, if you're going to go out and cover a road game in the Big 12, what one jumps out at you that you want to be all in on to go there?
Football. I mean, obviously this year you'd love to just get to Austin and catch one before they get out of town. Oklahoma's coming to Nippert, so that, and you see 7, 8 years ago, got a home and home with Oklahoma, but they played at Paul Brown Stadium, or Paycor Stadium now, the Bengals Stadium, instead of Nippert. So seeing a team like Oklahoma come into Nippert is going to be really, really cool. Football, I think they're all kind of on the same level that you want to just check out each and every one. Oklahoma State kind of stands out a little bit.
It's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. Baylor, I think, would be a cool place to see a game. Nobody wants to go to Lubbock, so that one's probably at the bottom of the list. Am I getting the hang of this?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got to know, if you're a country music fan, you want to go to Lubbock, but other than that, you're way out there.
I've actually spent a night in Manhattan.
Oh, you have?
So a buddy of mine growing up, we were in our 20s. He was in the Air Force and moved away. He was getting married in Vegas, and he wanted his wedding present for me to bring his car to him from Cincinnati to Vegas because he didn't have a car. So driving out there, we were driving through Kansas and saw the sign, Manhattan, like 30 miles off the expressway. And me and my buddy were like, let's go see what K-State's all about. So we went and had dinner and hung out and had a good night in Manhattan, and then got back on the road the next morning and went to Vegas.
How long ago was this?
2005, 2006. So it's been a while.
Wait until you see it. It's unbelievable, and what the Big 12 can do for you and winning can do for you. I had a buddy come to town that hadn't been in Manhattan in 5 years, and he didn't recognize much. So it's kind of crazy.
I'm looking forward to it. I really want to hit up a lot of the different spots. Obviously, in basketball, you got to go to Kansas once.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to see it. So, yeah.
Got to see it. Is there a school tradition with Cincinnati that the Big 12 should know about? Something the fans do, or something?
Something cool? Really fun before games. The band and Nippert Stadium is, if you haven't been, put it on your list as a must see. It's right in the middle of campus. It's built into a hole in the ground. So when you walk in at the mid-level of the stadium.
Right.
The band runs down the steps, sprints down the steps right onto the field to do their pregame show.
Nice.
And then every once in a while, you'll get a saxophone player get to the bottom of the steps and stumble, and it'll make all the TV news. And
that's awesome.
But that's one of the really cool. Yeah, it's one of the really cool experiences is watching the band come charging down the steps before a game.
I have covered a game at Nippert. It was 1995 when Kansas State played like crap and won on the last play of the game. It was my first year out of newspaper and then to non-traditional media, and I'm thinking, what have I done to my career? I guess it just stunk it up. Just absolutely stunk it up.
I will tell you this. When you walk into that place now with a memory of what it – because it almost got condemned back around that time. And, it almost – the football program almost went away. And when you walk into that place now with the new press box and the upgrades and the improvements that they've made to make this investment to get into the Big 12, you're like, wow, this place is special. The Wrigley Field of college football.
Yep, it's cool. And the aerial photo of it, how it just wedged into where it's at, is just fascinating. Okay, what's the one thing in Cincinnati or related to the university that fans should know about? Don't forget to do this.
One, you have to have Grader's ice cream.
Okay.
Everybody talks about the chili, and the chili is very polarizing. The thing that's not polarizing is Grader's ice cream.
Okay,
it's
I love
phenomenal.
that.
And they have black raspberry chocolate chip is like their signature flavor. So you have to get some black raspberry chocolate chip Grader's ice cream. The chili, the best advice, my guy Dave Simone, who's that does my podcast with me, the BCJ podcast, he's Italian. He refuses to eat a three-way, which is chili, spaghetti, cheese, because he's Italian and you don't put yellow cheese on spaghetti. But get a cheese coating and at least try it and see what you like.
Sounds good. That's Chad Brendel of our 247 Sports site at Cincinnati. I look forward to meeting you and your staff as we proceed into this new world. Big 12 fans are fired up to have all you guys. It's kind of cool.
It is. It's going to be really exciting, and I think it's 12 like-minded institutions that are going to be really fun to see who separates themselves from the pack, who kind of takes the place of Oklahoma and Texas going forward. It's going to be interesting. I love it.
Thank you, Chad. One more of these to go. Tomorrow on Deep Purple, we appreciate you watching.